A very warm welcome to our viewers today. Today with us we have an advocate who works in High Court and will be giving us awareness regarding the essentials of how consumers can be protected through GST and what just essentially GST means, and also the term anti-profiteering. So with much ado, a very warm welcome, sir, to our program today. And like I've told and introduced our viewers that you've been practicing High Court and you have so much of experience regarding GST. So my first question for you, sir, would be that for our viewers today, that what does GST mean, especially for lay persons coming and as consumers? What is the importance and what are the provisions under GST which protects a consumer? And also I would like to add that when we talk about GST, a lot of us have a misconception that as a sixth schedule state, we are not liable to pay taxes. We are exempted from paying income taxes. But GST, again, when we hear the term GST, a lot of us, there are confusion in our mind that is GST payable by sixth schedule citizens, or are we exempted from them? So it would be very insightful if you could share with our viewers today about a brief about the GST and who are liable to pay GST.
I am Sri Nihar Dasgupta, Advocate High Court of Meghalaya and retired Senior Manager Law of NEPCO, Shillong. I convey my heartfelt thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk on GST. The Goods and Service Tax, that is GST, was implemented on 1st July 2017 with an aim to simplify the tax structure and creating a unified tax regime of the goods and services of the country. Now, while the GST system was designed to benefit the consumers by eliminating the multiple layers of taxation and educating the overall tax burden, its successful implementation required a significant level of awareness and understanding among the consumers. Now, I emphasize some of the key points regarding the consumer awareness of GST in India. First of all, awareness campaign. The Indian government, along with various industry-based taxations authorities, launched the awareness program to educate the consumers about the GST. These campaigns involved advertisement, group discussions, workshops, and seminars to explain the new tax system and its implication on prices of goods and services. Secondly, impact on prices. One of the primary concerns of consumer was potential impact of GST on prices. The government emphasized that while some items might become cheaper due to reduction of taxes, on the other hand, some goods become costlier due to the tax change. Thirdly, digital initiatives. The government promoted the digital platform and online resources to provide information about the GST to consumers, and several mobile applications and websites were launched to facilitate easy access to GST related information and to adhere the consumers' queries. Fourthly, confusion and queries. Despite efforts to raise awareness, there was still confusion among the consumers, especially in the initial months, in the month of July 2017, when it was implemented in India, and the consumers had then questions about the tax rates, about its applicability, and procedures for filing complaints and seeking redressal. Fifth, feedback mechanism. The government set up helplines and customer care centers to assist the consumers in understanding the GST related issues and to gather feedback for improvement. Lastly, long-term impact. Over the time, as the people now have adopted the new tax system, consumer awareness of GST was expected to improve, and now more consumers would become familiar with the GST and its implication for their daily lives. It is very important to note that the consumers' awareness of GST have increased significantly in the years following 2021.
So coming back to the impact of GST and how it is that the consumers are getting aware, sir, could you also highlight one of the points which I've told you again, that regarding the confusion as to is GST to be, because it is applicable to all citizens of India, but coming back from our own state as a sixth schedule state, when these people here are exempted under the sixth schedule thing from paying, they're exempted from income tax.
Yes.
So could you just highlight that? Is it important, or should, if a firm or anyone is as consumers paying, do they also are liable to pay GST tax?
Now, this GST being indirect taxes, it is not applicable to the sixth schedule area of Meghalaya. It is applicable, not exempted, like income tax.
Right.
In income tax, sixth schedule area, it is exempted. But this GST has to be paid by the local people also. It is applicable to sixth schedule area.
Okay, I think this is something very important for our viewers here also to take back, because there's a lot of confusion when we talk about that GST and the taxes, and thank you so much for clearing this. Coming back to leading to the impact of GST and its primary objective, and how could you highlight certain examples or points for our viewers to take back as the benefits of GST? Why? Because there's always a question that why do we have to pay a GST? We are already paying taxes, especially for us who are already paying taxes, as taxpayers. Yes. So could you just highlight the benefits of GST for our viewers to, have a better information?
Yes. The primary objective of GST is to create a uniform tax structure across the India, thereby eliminating the cascading effect of taxes, what we often refer to as tax on tax. This new tax system was designed to simplify the taxation process, making it more transparent and ultimately benefit the consumers by reducing the overall tax burden. Now let me take a moment to highlight how GST benefits the consumers directly.
Right.
First of all, uniform tax rate. One of the most significant advantages of GST is the uniform tax rate across the nation. Whether you are in Meghalaya or in Maharashtra or in Tamil Nadu, the tax rate on a particular product or the services remains the same. This uniformity eliminates the regional prices disparities and ensures that the consumers do not have to pay more for the same product in different states. That means in all these states, same product, same tax.
Right.
Now, reduction in prices. With the implementation of GST from 2071, 1st July, several taxes that were previously levied on the goods and services have been subsumed into a single tax, and this has reduced the tax burden on many products, leading to lower prices. Consumers now have the potential to save money on every day on the goods and services. Now, thirdly, transparency. GST has brought transparency to the tax structure. Under the old system, when the indirect tax was imposed,
right,
it was often difficult to know how much tax you were actually paying because of multiple layers of taxes. With the GST, the tax is clearly mentioned on every invoices, allowing consumer to see exactly how much they are paying.
I think that is a very important thing what you said, and this also curbs us in actually checking the unfair trade practices which is happening. And sometimes as consumers, without knowing, or even as potential small business entities also, they don't know what to charge and how much to charge. And how you have very correctly highlighted that there has been a huge disparity among different states. So under this GST, what we can gather from here, and I hope our viewers can take, is that there's a uniformity which helps us in checking unfair trade practices. One of the crux of that is, and to bring in transparency. When we are talking about transparency, most of us, or perhaps some of us, have heard the word anti-profiteering.
Anti-profiteering, yes,
in
correct.
India.
Yes.
So could you highlight for our viewers coming to this term? Because when we think of anti-profiteering, we all have a different connotations or understanding.
Yes,
so if you could explain the term anti-profiteering first, under GST, and how, by giving examples for our viewers to have a better understanding as to what does anti-profiteering entail, why it is important under GST, and how, as consumers, as individuals, as consumers, or even for small business entities, what does it mean and the impact of it? That will be very, very helpful for our viewers.
Okay. Now, Section 171 of the Central Goods and Service Tax Act 2017 envisages that any reduction in rate of tax on any supply of goods and services, or the benefit of input tax credit, in short it is called ITC, shall be passed on to the recipient by way of commensurate reduction of prices. Now, unjust profit arises mostly in three situations or three scenarios. Firstly, suppose for any reduction of rates in GST was passed on to the consumers. For example, I am giving that GST rate on lower version of mobile sets was reduced from 18% to 12% by the Government of India. Now, therefore, the previous price, say base price was rupees 10,000.
Right.
And GST was charged 18%, that is 1,800. Total comes to rupees 11,800. Now, after reduction of tax rate by the government to 12%, then the base price will be remain same, that is 10,000.
Right.
And tax rate will be 12,000 of rupees 10,000, that is 1,200. Total comes to rupees 11,200. But the dealer, what happened? They do whatever old price. They obtain the old price of 11,800, that is 18%, first one. So thereby they making extra profit of 600. That is 11,800 minus 11,200, that comes 600. They are doing extra profit. This profit was made at the expense of the government tax. Right. Therefore, this is unlawful gain.
Right.
That is come under the anti-profiteering of GST. Second situation, say for any benefits, because any benefits input tax credit was not passed on to the consumer. For example, a TB dealer has purchased his TB sets from manufacturer at Chennai, which has base price say 10,000 per set. Now GST paid at 18%. Now total cost price comes 11,800. Now at Shillong, the transportation cost and the dealer's profit, etc., comes to rupees say 2,000. So therefore, effective sale price should be 11,800 plus value addition of 2,000. That is transportation and dealer's profit. So total comes 13,800 per set plus GST. GST on value addition.
Right.
Now, the dealer was charging 18% on the whole of 13,800. That is 2,484 instead of GST on the value addition of 2,000. 2,000 value addition, that is 18%, comes to only 360. But he charging 2,484, which he was actually paying to the government exchequer in cash
as well as by the ITC, that is credit, thereby making profit of 2,124 unlawfully. So this kind of profit is rampant in the unorganized and service sectors. Now, third category scenario, this GST was collected but not deposited to the government exchequer. That also comes under anti-profiteering provision. Example is this: a restaurant is collecting 5% GST on food sale. Now, but his annual turnover is below 40 lakhs, which is below the exemption threshold limit. Thereby, he is earning profit at the expense of the tax.
Right.
His annual turnover is 40 lakhs, so he did not have paid the return and all that, but he is charging 5% GST on food sale. So thereby, he is getting profit on tax. So that is also comes under anti-profiteering provision. So there are many instances where unlawful profit at the expense of the taxes are made by the supplier of goods and services, and most prone to unlawful profiteering prevails in retail market, where it assumes very difficult for the consumers to find whether he is paying double tax or not. Now, Reliance must, without adjustment of the tax paid at source of procurement, charges full tax at sale, thus making unlawful profit at the expense of tax.
Right.
Now, there have been several cases where the companies were found guilty of not passing on the GST benefits to the consumers and consumers. Now, for instance, a popular fast food chain was penalized for not reducing the price after GST rate cut. Another case involved a real estate company that was found to have overcharged customers by not passing on input tax credit benefits. These cases highlights the importance of the anti-profiteering mechanism in safeguarding the consumer's interest.
I think you've highlighted something very important, and this is where the question comes in, because
Yes.
like when you said, first how the companies are overcharging, and I hope for our viewers and as consumers, of course it pinches a bit, when we are paying extra without even knowing what we are paying for. How you have highlighted with examples that there are times when this thing is happening, where consumers are unaware, we are actually paying extra when it's not needed,
Yes.
which we are getting the benefit by through GST, but also with kind of counting with another example which you have given, that with all the counts of the cost of the transportation cost and with the profit, also they're still beneficial for both the consumers and also the business entities, but due to unfair trade practices, which unfortunately some of them do, so they are basically also taking the benefits of tax which they are not paying, but also as consumers we are getting overly taxed for that. Another thing I was like, what you've said, giving an example of restaurant, is that we were just having this conversation that even though after the GST has come into being, service taxes which were value-added taxes, VATs and all, which were there previously, have been done away with, because this is the new, it has superseded,
Yes.
GST has superseded. Yet, in our own state, without naming, there are certain food stalls or restaurants where they are still charging service tax. So I think it is very important for our viewers as consumers to realize that, if you could highlight that, that would be illegal, right?
Yes, this is illegal, because after GST, introduction of GST from 2017, they should not have charged the service tax. Only for the previous period they are charging nowadays is a show cause notice and issue for earlier periods,
Right.
not from the 2007.
Exactly. So I think this is a very, very good takeaway,
Yes.
sir, for our viewers, that now you are aware of your rights. Like we say, as a consumers, we have to be aware of our
Yes,
rights.
yes.
Buyers, be aware. Even in law, there is a saying that, consumers and buyers, we have to be aware of what we are purchasing and what value we are adding to it. So coming back to that, I hope our viewers get that next time when any restaurants or any places which charges you with service taxes, you are having the right to question it.
Yes.
And if need be, can also file a complaint with the consumer. consumer court. I think that is something very, very good takeaway for our viewers as consumers, as laypersons, because most of us, we are not aware or we feel too embarrassed to even ask. So sir has very highly, it is very, very insightful that you have highlighted this, because it's a very, very strong point as consumers in state of Meghalaya. We are facing that. Coming to the evaluation, when you've said that, okay, this is these are the things which are the parameters under which the GST falls and the rules and regulations follow. But could you highlight for our viewers that how does government monitor, as a monitoring agency, how does it monitor with business entities, like how you said that business do this when it comes to anti-profiting? How do they monitor about it? And could you just give us a brief, just a brief intro as to just for our viewers to understand that
Certainly.
how does government
Yes.
check on these kind of unfair trade practices?
Okay. Yes. The regulation of anti-profiteering under GST in India is overseen by the National Anti-Profiteering Authority. In short, it was called NAA previously, who has replaced by the Competition Commission of India, CCI, who take over the function of the National Anti-Profiteering Authority with effect from 1/12/2022. This authority ensures that the benefits of reduced taxes or input tax credits are passed on to the consumers by way of commensurate reduction of prices. Now, National Anti-Profiteering Authority is empowered to take action against the business that fail to comply with these requirements, including ordering of price reduction, refunding of amounts not passed on with interest, imposing of penalties, and even cancellation of their registration of the supplier. Now, anyone who has reasons to believe that taxable person is engaging in illegal profiteering under the GST can report the matter to the local screening committee. This committee, constituted by the state governments, comprises the various officers from the state government who are responsible for examining such cases. Now, if the screening committee finds merit in the information provided, it will forward the case along with the recommendation to the Standing Committee on Anti-Profiteering of GST, which is consisting of officers from the both central government and state government, and they will review it in details. Now, if the Standing Committee concludes that there is a sufficient evidence to indicate illegal profiteering, it will refer the matter to the Director General of Safeguards for a comprehensive investigation. This multiple level process ensures thorough scrutiny and familiar in handling the cases of suspected profiteering.
So I think, this is so much more, and it is, as we have started with the conversation, that GST is a very complex process. Unfortunately, we are running short of time, so we really have to actually wrap it up. But before wrapping up, we would like to just understand for our viewers your parting shot on what GST is and how it is important for our viewers as consumers to take into account. And also when we talk about monitoring and looking into business entities, because they're also facing a lot of challenges. Yes. So in just a few, in a very short, brief way, could you just give us a parting note on that for our viewers to have a takeaway with that before we just wrap it up?
While the most businesses are honest in managing their tax liabilities and passing on GST benefits through the input tax credit, it is called ITC, they face challenges in accurately calculating the impact of GST on costs and pricing due to complex supply of chain, ITC variability, and the need to maintain profit margin. Simultaneously, the consumer awareness about their rights and profiteering issues remains low, and the process for filing complaints can be cumbersome. Now, ensuring compliance without continuous oversight is another challenge to regulate. Addressing these issues requires clear guidance for businesses, consumer education campaigns, streamlined the complaint mechanisms, and the use of digital tools for compliance and monitoring. And these measures can foster transparency, build consumer trust, and ensure fair implementation of GST benefits.
Thank you so much. I think it is very, very insightful for our viewers today and for us also as individuals, as consumers. The best takeaway is that as consumers, be aware, being knowledgeable and gathering knowledge is very important. If you have any confusion, you can seek professional advice, and most importantly, as business entities or as also consumers, be aware and let us together create a very transparent transaction system, and most importantly, do away with unfair trade practices. Thank you once again for being a part. It was a pleasure having you with us, and I hope our viewers today has gotten or has taken away with them some information regarding what GST is all about, who are liable to pay, and most importantly, again I'm highlighting the fact that as consumers we have the right to question what are we being charged for, even if it's included in GST, to have a better information. Thank you viewers for being a part of this discussion.